Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Hi, Wilson. How are you?
Good, thank you, Wilson. Nice to see you.
Yeah, talk to me, Mike, about putting this thing together and bringing in a lot of people who've worked with you in the past.
Oh, it wasn't even just in front of the camera. We shot this in and around Mobile, Alabama, where I made my very first movie, Oculus, with Karen Gillan and Annalise Basso. A lot of my crew from the infancy of my career were with me on this too. So we put it together as a true independent film. It had no studio affiliation whatsoever. And it was an amazing chance to be reunited with a lot of people in front of the camera and behind the camera, only bolstered by the addition of these phenomenal new faces that came and graced our set and I think really elevated this movie. So for me, it felt like a homecoming, honestly.
Speaking about phenomenal, the minute I saw you, Tom, dancing, all I kept thinking is Fred Astaire and how good of a job you did. And I'm like, I'm advocating for you to play him now. But besides that, talk to me about what was it about the script that had you say yes. And obviously, I know you've talked about the dancing moves, but how much training did you do before you think you got it right?
Well, first of all, Wilson, that is high praise, and I'm grateful to you. Fred Astaire was a big figure for me when I was growing up. My grandparents loved him, and they had, they didn't, whenever we would go and visit them, they didn't watch television a lot, but they had some old Fred Astaire movies on VHS, and we used to watch them all the time. And then when I was training as an actor, I became really aware of his genius, and it is a kind of genius, I think. Swing Time, Top Hat, Carefree. There's a film called Carefree where he does a sort of 6-minute sequence with golf clubs. And it's one of the most breathtaking pieces of dance I've ever seen. It's just him, he's teeing off and he starts taking these golf clubs and swinging them around. Anyway, find it, it's brilliant. How much work did I do? A pretty substantial amount. I love dancing. I've always done it as a fun thing to do. I love music, and it feels like it's just a delight. When I'm with friends. I've never danced like this. I was trained a little bit in classical dance when I was training as an actor, but not to the extent that Chuck was. And so with Mandy Moore, our extraordinary choreographer, and Stephanie Powell, her assistant in London, and Jonathan Redavid, her assistant in Los Angeles, we together put together this sequence. And Mandy and Stephanie took me through jazz, swing, salsa, samba, bossa nova, polka, the Charleston. I must have learnt. I did a lot of dancing. And then when the time came, I burned holes in the soles of my shoes.
Hey, leave it to Mike to bring the best out of you in this particular performance. Mike, congrats on the film. Obviously, congrats on Toronto. I wasn't out there when you got the win, but let's see. Hey, let's hope a lot of people see this movie. They're going to be touched just like I was. Take care.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks, Wilson.
Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Hello.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can get out of this movie, and everybody can. There's one thing or another you can reflect to. What was it about the script that had you say yes and say, okay, I'll be a part of it?
Yeah. Well, I think for me it was just there was a kind of tone to it right from the beginning that felt very philosophical, very honest, felt very emotional, and very truthful, and sort of in its own way quite exciting, because you knew that there was a mystery to be resolved, but it also felt like in this kind of apocalyptic sort of world that they were speaking to the things that really mattered in that circumstance, which isn't everything sort of falling apart and running through the streets and the chaos of it all, but like these human emotional connections, and how do you actually really put yourself right within the context of all of these things happening. And it felt very truthful to me, and I thought it was just very emotional, and I love that.
Karen?
I mean, I just love anything that kind of makes you question your existence, the meaning of life, why we're here, how we're meant to spend our time. I've always loved stuff like that ever since I was a teenager. And so when the script came along, I'm like, oh, this is a bit of me. And it was told so beautifully and I don't know, it just sort of sparked so many conversations in my own mind of like how I'm spending my time and how I could be doing better with that. And I was like really excited to be a part of something that might inspire those conversations in other people.
So you, what did Chuck mean? You know, because you guys, your scenes are the ones that set this whole thing in motion. You know, as we're seeing Chuck plastered everywhere. You know, even I myself was like waiting to see where this is going. Was he an athlete? Was he a president? You know, was he an astronaut? Like, what was it about Chuck that had everybody saying, okay, he's everywhere. Why him and not anybody else? What did it mean to you? Just
in the process, as the character was sort of finding this, it was. I think there was a kind of mystery to be unraveled. I liked it in our conversation, you know, on the phone. That's what they make that joke about it. You know, that they're talking about seeing these billboards, seeing these adverts on television, and what it means, and dismissing it, but knowing somehow, I think they all know that there's something much more significant, perhaps sinister, perhaps not, that is happening underneath and is connected to this seemingly very straight down the middle, you know, up and down like 6 o'clock kind of guy. And but something else is going on. And I think that's what I found so intriguing about that. And I thought the resolution of that was so fascinating.
You know, there's a point in there where there's no internet. And in today's world, could you live without the internet? Either one of you.
I mean, I feel really fortunate to have experienced growing up without the internet and then it hitting when I was like an early teenager. And so I know that I can live without the internet. It's happened. But do I want to? Absolutely not. And you know, the internet has come along with so many amazing things and it has brought people together, but it's also completely isolated us in a way that, you know, it's really intense now, the isolation compared to how it was before, I think. And so it's got pros and cons. I don't know if the world would be better or worse without the internet. I don't know.
I dream of being able to drop out of the internet sort of thing. You know, I literally kind of like have these projected fantasies of being able to do it. And then something like, you know, being able to have an app for parking just sort of brings me back to reality. Okay, I'll keep the app for parking. In London, you know, you need the app for parking. You know.
That's a great idea for an app. Oh my goodness.
No, but it is, yeah.
I didn't know that existed.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Congrats on your roles. Congrats on the films. We'll talk down the road. Take care.
Thank you.
Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV. Hello, Mia. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Good. It's been a minute. I saw the name and I goes, no, is that who I think it is? You know, where have you been? What led you to say yes to taking this project after taking some time off?
It was all about Mike Flanagan. I'm just a huge Mike Flanagan fan. My whole family has been a huge Mike Flanagan fan, and we met socially. And I think he said, well, why don't you work anymore? And I mean, you know, there's a lot of answers to that. But he said, well, what if I asked you to do something? And I said, absolutely, for you, anything. And he asked me, so that's why.
Okay, so you've been out the game for a minute. How was it getting back on the horse? You know.
Well, see, that's the thing. You know, that's what I've been doing a lot of. I have a horse. I do a lot of riding. So it was great. Actually, it was really great. It was really great. It was wonderful because, you know, I started when I was very, very young, and there I was working with the wonderful Benjamin, and it was lovely to be older. I mean, there are things about getting older that, let's face it, are not so cool, but it actually was a wonderful thing to come back on the set with all my life's experience and all the things I've been through. I found it very healing, actually.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot in this movie that people can take and can relate with, you know, and there's a scene that you have where you're dancing, you know, so like, you know, when you have that scene and you're reading it, and as actors, you never know what's going to be called upon. You know, there's one thing when you're acting, but when you have to, you know, dance or fight or whatever, you know, how much preparation you went into, okay, what kind of dance moves are we going to do? Was that all you, or was that something that was coordinated?
There was an amazing choreographer called Mandy Moore who did choreograph that whole thing. And Benjamin and I danced for days and days, but it was joyful. And I don't dance as well in my real life as I do in the movie, but I dance in my kitchen. Absolutely, with my kids.
You know, so you have that music, and as long as you're getting nostalgic with the music that you're dancing to, did you have a choice? I was like, if we're gonna go this, why don't we pick a song that I can feel comfortable with?
No, I didn't. That was not my choice, but it was fun. I now know how to like polka. I know how to do all these cool dances that I didn't know how to do before.
So there's always something about a role that somebody has to relate with. So you think about the role that you're playing, and as you got the script, what was it about this character that you can relate with?
I think as a mom, I think when you have your child or a young person in your family, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and when somebody has been through a sad, when something happens to your child, even if things are difficult for you, I could relate to that need to lift their spirits, to hold them up, to be an example, and to try and give them joy, even if and I think I really related to that. I had someone in my life like that, and I think I was thinking of her, in that way, just somebody who has that thing with children that they can just they can see that they're sad and kind of be goofy and play around and lift their spirits. That's what I related to.
Now that you're back, is this a one and done, or are we going to see more of you?
If Mike needs me, I'll be there.
Hey, listen, we'll take what we can get for now. It's good to see you. Thanks for your performance. We'll talk down the road, hopefully. Take care.
Thank you, too.
Wilson Morales from Black Women TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
It's going great. How about you?
Good. There's that line where it goes, I can hardly recognize you. And that goes to you, Mark. I can hardly recognize you in this film, but you did such a fantastic job. What was it about the script that had you say yes to it?
I was set up in the absolute wrong way because I said, oh boy, Stephen King and Mike Flanagan, both masters of horror. I'm expecting, the most macabre, supernatural, mind-blowing horror film of all time. And when I read it, it's unlike anything I've ever read from Stephen King, even including Green Mile and Shawshank and The Body. Those are atypical when you're thinking of him as strictly a horror writer. But it's unlike anything Mike has adapted and directed. So, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I read it. I took about an hour to think about it, and then I read it again. Every time you read it or see it, you see something new. I missed that. I didn't get that. My wife and daughter have seen it as much as I have, and they'll point things out as, oh yeah, so that wasn't real, that was in his mind? Oh, okay. So I can't tell you that I definitively understand it all, but it affected me in a way that nothing ever has. It's so life affirming, it shows you how just little seemingly inconsequential moments or interactions in the greater scheme of things are crucial elements of life. So, and you're seeing it through the eyes of one character at 4 different stages. There's just nothing to compare it to. And I told people I'm going to be horrible on the promotional trail because how do you describe the indescribable? My advice is just go see it. Don't read reviews. Don't listen to your neighbor. Don't Google it. See it, and you can thank me later.
Benjamin, how was it working with Mark as well as taking up dancing lessons so you could dance as well as Tom when you got to different stages?
Yeah, I had grew up watching Mark. I had known him for so long. I'd known him personally, but I had always known his name. And when I found out, even when I got the audition, seeing I had known that Tom and Mark were in it, and they're 2 of my favorite actors. And when I got to Alabama where we shot, Mark was kind enough to have lunch with me, and I was nervous for that. But he really kind of got me down to earth, and we had a wonderful time there. And filming was amazing with Mark, and so much fun. And going to the dancing part of your question, I only met Tom once briefly. I think it was his first week of shooting, and it was my second day there. And I was able to go to set. Our choreographer, Mandy Moore, let me go to set and watch Tom dance for a little bit. And I got to take some things that he did and put it into my dance. And when we had dance class with Mandy, I would try my best to kind of put those in and try to have the audience kind of see Tom and me a little bit, and all the Chucks in one character.
Both of you did great jobs. It's a fun film that people will enjoy. People will find something within the film to relate with. Let's hope everybody gets to see the life of Chuck. Congrats to you both.
Thank you very much.
Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV. Hello, how's it going?
Hi, it's going well. How are you?
Good. So obviously it's been some time since you last worked with Mike. How was it coming back into the fold?
There's no way to better come back to working with him than with a project like this, because although we've had this relationship where I've worked with him since I was 12 or 13. I forget how old I was on Oculus, but I was young. To be able to show him and the world this different side of myself, it was a gift. And I hope to continue working with Mike again and again, because he's so brilliant, and the story that he wants to tell to be aligned with that legacy, I'm really grateful for.
And for a change, it's not a horror, it's not a thriller. It's like, we could define that. It's like, oh, she's not a scream queen in this one. It's like, no, but you are dancing, You get to do a lot for the short amount of time that we see you in. How did you prepare for this?
I feel like I've been training for this my whole life. I've been dancing my whole life, and Life of Chuck came to me at a point where I just was looking for, maybe I wasn't really looking for anything anymore. I had just become content and had time to really look at the career that I've had and expand my gratitude for that. And then Mike came in and he was like, well, your cup's already full. Let me just share in this joy with you. I want to bring you this opportunity. And training for it, training with Mandy Moore, training with her assistant choreographer, Jonathan, I learned so much. They were such kind, and Mandy pushed me, and that I'm grateful for that. And I learned so much with under their leadership. It was great.
As an actor, you have to be prepared for anything, whether it's to drive a stick shift, whether it's to dance, whether it's to sing. Obviously, this is one opportunity where you get to do that. And, you're working opposite Tom. And then, as you were training, how long did it take throughout the process of rehearsing before you got it right on screen?
Well, this speaks to Mandy's leadership and Tom's hard work ethic and mine as well. We trained and drilled and drilled and drilled, and basically I would say 90% to 98% of the time we were on our marks, we were doing it right. Very little mistakes were made. There were very few times where we had to start over. I can probably count on one hand the number of times we had to do that.
And at the end of the day, having worked with Mike twice now, what did you get out of his direction that you can take skill set wise moving forward to whatever you do next?
That there's always room to grow, and even in relationships that are familiar with people you've worked with before, if you're willing to take risks, if you're willing to trust the people who you're working with and collaborate, Mike is really teaching me how to master the skill of collaboration. He's so good at that. And this one I really got to see, because this is a huge ensemble cast, I really got to see what that looks like and how a director brings people together and cultivates this environment of collaboration.
Congrats on your role. Congrats on your performance. We'll talk down the road. Take care.